It is 7 p.m. on a Monday evening in June. Good evening, friends and neighbors. Welcome to a meeting of the Stayton City Council. It is Monday, the 20th of June. The longest day of the year is tomorrow, and it's all downhill from there. Let's start with a flag. Would everyone join me in a flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, folks. Let's see. Under announcements, are there any additions to the agenda? No one at the front table is nodding. I want to introduce, and I'm going to try to get this right, our new city manager, Julia Hyduk, and she joins us this evening, and a big welcome to her. And we are looking forward to many good times. So welcome and thank you, ma'am. Any declarations of ex parte contact, conflict of interest, bias, etc.? No? No appointments this evening. Under public comments, Julie Boxler, if you would like to come up, please. Of course, when the little green light's on, there you go. Go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm Julie Boxler, 1660 Mount Jefferson Drive, Stayton, Oregon. And I have the good, the bad, and the ugly for my 3-minute presentation. Which would you like first?
Go ahead.
All right, the good. Revitalize Downtown Stayton has recently received a $200,000 grant to work on the exterior of the Hobson Galen building. We're having a ribbon cutting ceremony on Wednesday night at 5 p.m. And we would love all of you to attend, and that will be completed over the next year. So we're really excited about that. That comes with a $79,000 matching contribution from the owner. So, and then the bad and the ugly is we are having some issues. I own a building downtown at the corner of 3rd and High Street, and we're having issues with the homeless people. And if it was just the homeless, it would be all right, but it brings along mentally ill issues where I feel unsafe leaving my building, even in the light of day, because he likes to sleep right beside where I park my car. My daughter has quit going to the little dance studio on 3rd Avenue because they do drugs right outside, and she's just not going to take her 4-, 5-, and 6-year-old out in front of the drug usage right there at the parklet. So I don't know if City Council can do anything about it, but we would sure appreciate it if you could.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. On that, somebody that owns a building right across the street, Aaron Frechtel, would you share a thought with us? I'm sure you will.
I'm Aaron Frechtel. I live at 12326 Gulf Lane, Southeast Sublimity, Oregon. I'd like to tag on to what Julie just talked about with I hesitate to call them homeless because I would say that there's a little bit of an honor that's in homelessness, and I'm not seeing honor in our situation here. We have drug users, and they're flagrantly flaunting the fact that they can stay here and do whatever they want. And I called the police department, had them come because I felt that it was not a good idea to have a public parklet on 3rd Avenue because they were using that to stage their little drug operation right outside my building. And so I removed the wood furniture. There's still some metal furniture there. Just to refresh anybody's memory, that's meant for people to enjoy. And it's become not enjoyable to have a situation like this. And I know at least one of these individuals has threatened me personally, threatened violence against me when he was outside this building here. My father-in-law owns the building right behind here. I do maintenance on it on a regular basis. As I said before, it's not honorable to treat people the way that these people are treating our citizens. And it is not safe. I don't like hearing patrons of my tenants leaving and not being able to enjoy the street. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on our downtown recently. A lot of it has resulted in really great things. RDS has done a lot of work. Building owners have done a lot of work. Business owners have done a lot of work. And when people are leaving and not coming to our downtown because of this issue, it's a problem. And if you follow the news, it's only going to get worse in the next few months. And I would urge the city council to look at passing some sort of ordinances that prohibit either public staying like vagrancy or the fact of no camping on our sidewalks and things like that. I think that other cities have done a number of things to push out these people, and there are only going to be more of them on our doorstep if we don't do something proactively. I'm a person that highly believes in a hand up, helping people, making sure that these people have opportunities or ways to get out of their situation. But from my experience, my personal experience, and the experience I've heard from multiple other people, some of whom have put some written notices in, that this is not that situation. And I really urge you to do something about it proactively before it gets much worse. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Aaron. Okay. The person that wanted to talk about streets, would you come up to the mic, please?
Hi, I'm Marion Lane. I live at 174 West High Street.
Lane.
Yeah, sorry.
There we go.
Yeah, my street's a mess. It's a little lake out in front of my house. I've got semi trucks coming down my road, coming down Alder and turning onto High, and that's causing the streets to break up more. If there could be some sort of a sign put out where semis don't come down through there, and if there could be some gravel put in those holes, anything would help. It's just a mess, and cars just drive through it, make a bigger mess. It's probably one of the worst streets in town.
I'd agree. Have you talked to Public Works?
I have. Yeah, Ian. I've talked to Ian. And he, in fact, my sidewalk has sunk, and we had to fix it because of the water. And so we lifted it up, and all the gravel had been washed away due to the water. We had to refill it and level it out.
Okay.
Yeah, the sidewalk is sinking down the street a little ways. Yeah, it's just going to keep on reoccurring as long as this continues.
And the trucks are using that as a turnaround route?
Well, I believe that the donut shop that was there previous had a delivery
Okay.
from a company, and they would just use it to go around. And then just the other day, I think it was Dawn, I have a video of him going down my street and just doing it as a turnaround. Yeah.
But with semi-trucks, not just pickups?
No, it's semi-trucks, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's all I had to say. Just wanted to
okay.
see what can be done.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else that needs to say something at this point?
Mayor,
In our
Mayor
meeting.
Porter,
Yes.
I just wanted to also note that we did receive written public comment this evening. It was emailed out earlier. You should also have a copy at your desk or at your seat. And it was regarding a similar issue to what Julia and Aaron had brought up. So I just want to make sure for the record that we stated that was there and it was posted on the website also.
That's this.
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Where's,
Counselor Hook here,
I hear a voice or something.
right here.
Ah!
Hello.
One of my counselors. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Counselor.
I wanted to ask if there is a way that when we have specifically the underhoused issue come up, if we can have the lawyer here for those conversations, if we're getting public comment on that, if we can have our city attorney here, because it's kind of hard to have any discussion about that when we don't know where all the cases are, what the case law is. Like, there's not a lot that we can talk about even without a lawyer present. So I don't want to have these issues ignored, and I don't want them pushed out too far either when they sound sort of, or urgent in nature. So I know that we have a city attorney. I'd also hope that maybe we could talk about what that looks like going forward with the new city manager here, because I personally don't think that what we have is working. Anyway, that's all I had to say.
Okay. Thank you. Good points. Is there any other public comment? If not, we're going to move on. Yes, Aaron?
One thing I didn't mention is that we do also have abandoned vehicles that are inoperable, that are on High Street. And I was alerted to that by Wolfgang's today, that it's blocking some of the parking for their business. And so if there are vehicles that need to be towed, I think that is a valid thing. They're either expired licenses or they're completely inoperable because of flat tires or something like that. And when they block parking spaces for a long period of time, it makes it harder for parking, especially since we lost all those intersection parking spots too. So, thank you.
Aaron, you knew that we had a very active ordinance officer who is checking out any of these concerns
That's great.
once she knows about them. So, yeah.
Mayor, sorry, one more time. Over here this time.
Yes.
I saw Dan writing notes down about that, but there's also on the website, there's a form you can go fill out. It's under resources. It's called a code enforcement complaint form. So that way, if you see those things, you can fill that out and it sends it right to Heidi, who's our code enforcement officer.
All right. Progress. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda for the evening. We'll move on into business here.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. I've got a motion. Is there a second, please?
Mr. Mayor, this is Counselor Patty. I second that motion.
Okay, that motion is seconded. Two things on the consent agenda: June 6th of 2022 regular city council minutes, and resolution number 1038 approving changes to utility charges. So those two things are on there. Melissa, would you poll the council, please, on that? I have a motion and second.
I'm actually going to let Tammy here do it. She is in training, so.
Wow. Oh, go ahead.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor Ord,
Yes.
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor Hook,
Yes.
and Counselor McDonald.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. Okay, under general business this evening, GRI, that is
Correct.
geotechnical, well, anyway, the group that we've teamed with to look at pavement management. Lance, would you Take us through this, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This evening, before you, to give you the results, and not me personally, we have our consultant with us tonight. I believe Alyssa will let her on. Her name is Lindsay Hammond, and she works for GRI Technical Resources. They did a pavement management investigation to all our roads. They input all the data into a new software that we'll be using from here forward called Street Saver, which helps us determine a nice selection of roads to put our dollars into. And it's not just a selection of streets anymore where we get in a room and we decide, you know, what roads we're going to be paving. This is going to help us. This is a scientific way of doing it. This is a pretty standard way of looking at street maintenance. And with that, I will turn this over to Lindsay. She can tell you what they did, and at the end, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. Can you see and hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Gotta love it when technology works. So, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me. As Lance just mentioned, my name is Lindsay Hammond, and I am pleased to be able to help you guys with your pavement management program. I'm a professional engineer who has specialized in pavement engineering for the last 15 years. And I've been working with agencies around the Pacific Northwest doing exactly what we've done for you guys. So I'll jump right in, and to start off, we'll give a little bit of a background for pavement management to make sure we're all kind of on the same page and we have an understanding of why we're doing this. So pavement management is a systematic method for understanding the network of pavements that an agency has. And it utilizes what is called a preservation-based approach. And this is where we basically look at roads and we keep good roads good. This is different from what is traditionally done, which we call worst first. And that's where we see a bad road with potholes, cracking, and we go and we fix that first. That approach is the most expensive, and it generally doesn't let us touch more roads because of the price to fix the really bad road. So on the left of the screen, you see there's a road that looks like it's in pretty good shape. It's going to do a less expensive treatment to keep that good road good. Anecdotally, preservation-based approach, we say we're going to pick the right road at the right time, and we're going to apply the right treatment. So that's the mindset that we've been using throughout this process. So the pavement management process, as shown in this kind of flow chart, is actually a circular method. We start by setting up a database and then maintaining that database. And as Lance mentioned, we utilize Street Saver. Street Saver is one of the two most common programs, and many of your neighboring agencies, cities and counties use this program. So it's not just a one-off that I wanted. You know, it's a common product that is regularly updated and well accepted across the state. So we put in your inventory. We know all your roads, the surface types, the lengths, the widths, all that stuff. We can also keep track of maintenance and construction records in there. And then we went out and did a pavement condition index rating, which is the way we monitored pavement deterioration. That's something that should continue to be done on a routine basis. And then once we gathered that information, we brought it back into the office and sat down with the program and ran some analysis, which we'll talk about. We did some budgeting analysis, and then we also developed multi-year project lists. And the great thing about this program with those project lists is it's unbiased. It's looking at cost and keeping good roads good. So it's looking objectively at conditions, not who lives on what street and who's the loudest person in the room to get their road fixed, which sometimes is an important thing to listen to, but we can't do it for all the streets. So it helps us kind of prioritize things. Now, once we take that information, then we can move it into design and construction. And then after design and construction, we update the pavement management system. So it's this ongoing cycle. So just a little background, what's preservation versus like rehabilitation? Preservation is a lower cost treatment. It's things like crack sealing and patching, doing surface treatments, slurry seals, chip seals, things like that that are going to take less time, they cost less money, and they extend the life of the pavement. Whereas rehabilitation is when a pavement has really deteriorated and needs to be rebuilt. It's very expensive. Usually preservation treatments are under $10 a square yard. Rehabilitation and reconstruction treatments can be, 30 to 100 or more dollars a square yard. So very different in cost. So a big part of pavement management is the pavement condition index, the PCI, which is this scale. It's from 0 to 100, where 0 is a pavement in poor condition, and then 100 is a pavement in best condition. And what pavements do over time is they deteriorate. So this gray line represents a curve and how the pavements deteriorate over the life of it.
Okay,
And that,
Lindsay, I just
Go ahead.
want to point out
Yeah.
real quick. We used to use what was called as the PACER scale. I think you're all familiar with my presentations in year gone by, 0 to 10. This is much different. It goes 1 to 100. It allows us to look at the structural section as well as the surface section. And so that is what she's talking about, the PCI. We're now going to be using the PCI rating. The PACER study is gone. We're no longer going to be doing that. I just want to make that clear. Go ahead, Lindsay. Thank you.
no problem. Yeah, so within different ranges of this scale, we have different types of treatments that we're going to apply. So naturally, the higher the score, the more minor the treatment, the lower the score, the more significant. So a very poor street needs reconstruction, whereas a very good street needs just some minor maintenance. And there is, of course, as pointed out here, an optimum timing for treatment. And this is an area where we can most cost effectively manage our pavements. And we're basically within that area, keeping our good roads good. So when we started the project, we had to figure out what you guys have. And what you guys have is a lot of pavement. You have nearly 6 million square feet of pavement, which accounts for almost 100 football fields. We all can kind of picture, how big a football field is. So that's a lot of pavement that you guys have to take care of and keep up on. So that's why it's important that you guys are implementing this system. And that breakdown of that nearly, 100 football fields worth of pavement is about 83% of your network are local roads, so local access, residential, and then 13% are collectors, and then 4% are arterials, and most of them are asphalt surface, so they're black, not the white surfaced pavement. And then you do have a little bit of gravel streets, and some of those were always gravel, and some of those are just roads that have fallen into such disrepair that we can't call them asphalt anymore. And if we had to go out today and completely replace your network, not including all the drainage and all the signage and all the safety things, all the underground utilities, it would be $74 million. So think about all those other add-ons. You have a very important asset that you're looking after. So as Lance mentioned, we are using the PCI index. This is a nationally recognized standard. If you brought in a different consultant who was trained, they can go out and survey and collect data and do exactly what I did. It's a very repeatable rating scale, which is fantastic. It's less subjective because there is very detailed parameters about how you collect the data. So that's just important to reiterate that we're using a system that isn't based on how I feel the pavement looks. It's what distresses are there, what severity are those distresses, and how much of those distresses are present. So we went out and did the survey, and what we found is your network PCI, so your area weighted average PCI is a 59. And if you can see on this deterioration curve, 59 is falling really close to out of the optimum timing for preservation treatments, which is very, very important to realize. we're critical point in your guys' pavement condition to like start thinking about doing something. And so what does that look like spatially? So this is just an overview of the PCI ratings for the whole entire city. And all the colors represent the different categories as shown down here on the right. Green is good, red is bad. And then to just break this down in a little bit more digestible manner, first we'll look at the good pavement. So pavements that are in category 1 and 2, which are represented by blue and green, generally are pavements we just need to keep in good shape. We're going to do the lowest cost treatments with crack sealing, surface treatments, and the very rare occasion of a thin overlay. But generally, these are the ones we want to make sure we're keeping an eye on and keeping them in great shape. And 41% of your network are comprised of pavements in this condition category. The next condition category, number 3, are good roads, but they're starting to show structural related distresses. So things like maybe potholes, rutting, or fatigue cracking or alligator cracking, things you'd want to go out and patch. And these are a little bit more expensive to repair, but these are roads that are on prime opportunity to save from falling into the need of rehabilitation or reconstruction. So 17% of your network is in this category where you really need to get on it, or else it's going to become extremely more expensive to repair and bring them back up to good condition. And then last, about 42% of your network is in poor to very poor. And these are the streets that need reconstruction or thick overlays, structural overlays with patching. These are the most expensive streets in your network to repair. And one thing to keep in mind, as inconvenient as a road is when it has completely failed, it's not going to fail worse. You need to make sure that that road is passable and safe for the public. But it may not be the ideal candidate if you don't have the funding to be able to repair it. If you could save another road from falling into that same condition, excuse me. So after we did the PCI survey, we came back to the office and we started planning for the next 5 years of your guys' projects. Excuse me. And what we did, we took the projected budget over the next 5 years and we looked at it. We took the approach of what treatments can we apply to keep your overall network PCI the highest and save as many roads from falling into a further state of disrepair. And how we did that was basically the skinny roads that have color on them are surface treatments. So those are slurry seals. And those are keeping the good roads good. And then the thicker lines are our rehabilitation projects. And you'll see we only have 2 years of surface treatments. And every year, every one of the 5 years, we have a rehabilitation project. And that's just based on the fact that more of your network is in a state that needs to be repaired with overlays. And so we had to spend more of the money doing that in order to keep your roads in as good of condition as possible. And then we also looked at some different budget scenarios. So we looked at 4 specifically, and we looked at them to see how they would impact the PCI over a 5-year period, but also how the deferred maintenance costs would change. And deferred maintenance is the cost of any maintenance that is needed to bring your pavements up to a good condition. And so as of 2022, you guys have a deferred maintenance of $10.6 million. And so that's our starting point. And then we'll see how things change. And so we looked at these 4 different scenarios, and I'll explain about the results on this next graph, which has a lot going on. So the red dashed line shows the starting deferred maintenance. The gray line with the little diamonds shows the PCI at the end of the analysis period. We want to remember the starting PCI is 59. And then the bars each show 2 different things. So blue bars represents the total expenditures, how much money are we spending over the 5-year period. And then the orange bars represent how much the deferred maintenance is at the end of the 5-year period. So the first scenario here is eliminate deferred maintenance. So this is if we had all the money in the world, what would it cost to get rid of all of our deferred maintenance? This is kind of unrealistic. Most agencies could never get this much funding, but it's a good high watermark to understand where we're standing. So in order to eliminate all your deferred maintenance, bring your PCI up to 84, you need nearly $25 million over a 5-year period. When you maintain your current budget, which is about $400,000 a year on average, your PCI will drop to a 53 from a 59, and your deferred maintenance is going to increase. So again, the change in deferred maintenance is whatever is above or below the red line. And then if we are to maintain a PCI of 59, so holding steady, our deferred maintenance is going to increase, not quite as much, but it's still going to increase. And it will cost us more because it costs us more to make our roads better. And that's about $1 million. I think it's $970,000 a year. And then the last scenario we looked at was, what if we want to raise our PCI up to a goal of 70? And this is a very common score that a lot of agencies around try to achieve, because at 70, we have more roads in that preservation category, so it becomes less expensive over the long term to maintain. And what you can see is if we choose this goal, our deferred maintenance is actually slowly starting to decrease. And this is a little over $2 million a year to maintain this scenario. So looking, if we don't like graphs and we like numbers, we can look at the same thing. And so this first column is the funding level, how much we need to spend over 5 years. The second column here is the deferred maintenance amount, and that is how much the deferred maintenance will be at the end of the 5-year period. And the column next to that is the percent change. So eliminate deferred maintenance, it's 100% decrease, you don't have any more. Whereas maintain current budget, it's actually going to go up by 64%. And then the very last column is the resulting PCI. So what's next? I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you guys in a very quick amount of time, but there's a couple key things to take away. And one is just deciding on a whole is if this planned pavement management program approach and keeping good roads good is what we want to do, or if we want to kind of keep the reactive worst first. It's not generally as sustainable, but some agencies and people believe that that's what's best for their community. But if we keep the pavement management approach and use that, there's a couple of benefits. One, it's something that you can point to and say, I put this plan together in an unbiased manner using a systematic approach that is accepted nationally, and I am paving this street or slurry sealing this street because it makes the most financial sense. It also is something you guys can use to help get additional funding. I work with other agencies who utilize their Street Saver and their PCI ratings to get grant funds from federal highways. They like to see agencies being good stewards of their funds. And this is a way to say, hey, I have proof that what I'm doing based on managing and increasing your pavement conditions. And so if you do go down this route, the next question is, well, what should we be putting, how much money should we be putting towards our pavements? And you can talk through those by looking at what are your goals as a community. Do you want to reach a PCI score, or do you want to change your deferred maintenance? Do you want to decrease it by a certain percent? Or is there something else that you want to look at? So with that, I will open it up for any questions, and I thank you for your time.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. I would add to it, but you did such a wonderful job. I'm just going to turn this over to the council for questions.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, Lindsay. Questions, folks?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
So I just have a question about, I understand we can't fix all the roads at once, right? I get it. I understand it's expensive. But what about, like, when you have to maneuver around an entire, like almost get up onto where a sidewalk should be because the pothole is so big, like how are we going to work those streets in regardless of what this system says? Because like there's one over near Ida, like near Cherry or something. I don't know if it's Cherry or if it's like a cross street of Cherry, but where I literally just randomly decided to go down that street, and my whole car had to maneuver around this huge pothole. I don't know who lives on that street. I don't know anybody there that I'm aware of, but I can't imagine that that should continue to stay like that when it's that big. Like, can't we put gravel? Like, how do we work that in, those types of streets?
We do have a grading and erosion control program. I'm not sure when the last time you were out there. This happened last week. We generally went and did all our gravel roads. We do them once a year. We bring rock in, we grade them, and then we put a surface treatment over top of them. We did not put the surface treatment over top of them this year yet because it was raining so hard. So we graded them, we put rock down, and we rolled them. Now, that's not going to take care of all the potholes in this town. I mean, all we have to do is drive around. If Lindsay would show the drawing again, you can see Old Town. Basically, every road in Old Town probably needs a reconstruction. It just does. And that is what she's trying to emphasize here. We could spend our dollars doing that, but we'll do 2 or 3 blocks a year, and that's it. All the other roads are going to get worse, and then our deferred maintenance is going to go up, much like it is now, because the city didn't invest any money in street maintenance in the past. So these are choices that the city council needs to make. I think this is a great topic for our goal-setting session in February to determine where we want to go with this. Anyway, that's what I'd say. We do try to put maintenance dollars into gravel roads. And if there is, I believe we do also have a complaint form on our website. If there is a pothole out there that people want to submit to Public Works, we will have someone go out and fill it with rock and roll it. But it's a fix that's only going to be until the next time it rains and, people drive over it and potholes just open back up.
Thank you, Lance.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yes.
ask Lance a question? Sorry. Sorry we didn't have a chance to talk about this earlier today. Just a process question. What are we wanting from the council this evening versus future meetings? And is there a future meeting where we're going to be discussing this?
No, I've been working on this for well over a year, and I think I've been preaching for the last several years that I've wanted to go to the PCI for the last 7 years. Last year and a half ago, I finally was able to do it. That's when I met Lindsay. She's also doing some work for the roundabout. She did some structural work for us. That's where I met her. I used to work with her old boss at GRI up in Portland. But I just wanted to present this to the council to show you that when I've been sitting here saying that we're 70 years in the past, we haven't been doing anything. We're 70 years behind. We could have our roads stay in the same condition and keep working towards them, and it would take us 70 years to fix. Now, you probably heard that from me for the last 6 years. You're like, he's just hallucinating. I wanted to get someone in here that this is a specialty of theirs to present this material to you. So so when we do go have these conversations, goal-setting session, or if we want to have another meeting to discuss this, that you guys are aware of what we're faced with.
So you're not asking for specific direction?
No,
from
this was
council?
just a presentation tonight.
Yeah, and just for what it's worth, the city I came from had used this PCI program, and that was how we did our budgets every year, was based on the whatever the PCI level was, and so it is a good system, I agree.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty. If I may.
Yes, go ahead.
So real quick, Lance, I just want to go ahead and affirm my understanding of things. This is a lot of information. I'm greatly appreciative of all of it. So in one of the slides, the budget analysis with the different scenarios, one of them was if we maintain levels of $400,000 a year for this budget, in 5 years, that there's going to be a significant degradation of this PCI level. So if I'm reading this correctly, to maintain our current PCI level, we would have to be funding this budget $970,000 a year. Do I have that?
That is my understanding, and that makes a lot of sense to me, yes.
Okay, so that's roughly 230% of the current budget. Do I have that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure we as a council understand that and the community
I
understands
do want
that.
to point out, though, and I think most of you are aware of this as well, is that in the past, when I started here and we started doing this pavement management, we've increased our budget significantly, all right? We all know that. I think when I started here, there may have been 2 or 3 overlays done in the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. We did 2 or 3 blocks at a time. We have increased our budget significantly. I think we paved Regis Street, which is well over a mile of lane, and we can see what it did. It improved our streets, big time. Drivability, rideability, walkability. So these are choices that you have to make. And I know we passed the gas tax. So it was one of the reasons we passed the local gas tax, to put more money into fixing our roads, our sidewalks, our ADA ramps. So these are, again, choices that we're going to have to make. We may choose to leave them the way they are, but we will see degrading. And you guys need to be aware of that. That's really what this is about, to know where you're at.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Lance. Yes, go ahead, please.
Maybe Lance, this is either a question for you or Lindsay. So this plan, the 5-year plan that we have on here, is this with the current funding?
I asked Lindsay, and I'll let her speak to this. Lindsay, I'll let you, but I asked Lindsay, she asked what our budget was, and I gave her our budget for the last 5 years.
Okay.
And so roughly over the last 5 years, on average, we've spent about $400,000 on overlays and street maintenance. That is what she ran with. So Lindsay, you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, that's exactly what we did. We took what we think you are going to have. It may be less, it may be more. You have to pick a number and go with it. So we tried to pick something realistic so we could plan for the future. And if you get more money, then we can add in roads as we do that. But it's based on what's anticipated.
You can see with the 5-year capital improvement plan that she prepared for us, she has estimates on each one of the segments in there, what it would cost to do that. So that is one of the things you're going to get out of Street Saver. We can project exactly what it's going to cost for the street paving section. Now, as you all know, where I was going to go to before is our other infrastructure is so depleted that we can't pave every road that we want to pave because our sanitary sewer is non-existent, we don't have storm drainage, and that adds cost to your project. I mean, you've got to put curbs in the ground so you can route stormwater. You got to put stormwater into catch basins, storm pipes. So there are a lot of roads that we have out there that need infrastructure as well. What Lindsay did for us was to tell us what it would cost us just to put our roads in order. And when we look at this, I asked her already, I probably perturbed her a little bit because I didn't have the 5-year capital improvement plan longer than a few days. And I said, look, I need another 20 streets here because I can't pave a couple of these roads because they need so much infrastructure. So they did that for us. So we have probably, 15, 16 roads in there that we're looking at paving. Wyatt Street, for example, I have that for next year. That was one of the additional roads that she gave us over in Westtown. So that's what we'll be doing next year, Wyatt.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I have another question.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
I understand this makes sense to me, and I get, being good stewards of money and trying to save their streets and everything. What do we do in situations, like we had public comment earlier, so what do we do in situations where the road is causing damage to people's properties, so they are spending money to have to fix sidewalks and do these things when it's our road, but it's the road that's causing these issues? Like what, I get this, but what do we do in those situations?
High Street is famous. There's no two ways about that. I send my folks out there quite a few times, well, quite a bit, to fix potholes. And that's all we can do until we choose to reconstruct the road. You cannot just pave High Street. That is a complete rebuild, dig up what's there, put new rock, fabric, curbs. I mean, that's what that road is. That's the way it's been for probably 15 years or more. That's the way it will stay, other than our maintenance of that. And that's grading it, putting rock down, doing the best we can to maintain it for people to use. I don't know what happened to the sidewalk. I mean, I can find out, but I don't personally know what happened to it. But again, when you have roads like that, you don't have storm drainage. Now, storm drainage is just going to go where it goes. I mean, that's the old adage. Water's going to find the least resistant path to go somewhere. And if it's towards the sidewalk, that's where it's going to go. It go underneath the sidewalk. It may erode some soil and rock underneath that sidewalk, which may make that sidewalk cave in, is what I thought I heard her say. So that is the facts. Those are the facts. And until we decide we want to spend money to reconstruct that road, we're just going to have to keep our maintenance up.
And I'll also add, so yes, hi, over here. Keeping the maintenance up, responding, being aware, and, we've been meeting this week, seeing where there might be opportunities to find funding, and it's not necessarily going to be fast, but, I think we just continue to use that information to help us identify, are there other funds that potentially could help with this particular street and this particular problem. Meanwhile, working on maintaining the roads that are already in good condition so they don't get there, and trying to just chip away, I guess no pun intended, at the roads that are in really bad condition.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll follow up to that real quick. So you were saying that this system has information, estimates on how much it's going to cost us to do this. Does the system only take into consideration the road, or in the instance of, let's say, High Street, will it take into consideration all the factors of reconstruction and whatnot?
No, this system is going to take our budget. It's going to figure out, it knows how much, what the area is, because they put all that in between the curbs and edge of pavement. It knows the area. It knows the length of segment, because they do this on segment for the rating. And they can calculate, they'll put in a data input for the cost per square yard to fix that road, depending on the treatment. Now, if you're talking about infrastructure like storm or sanitary water, no, it doesn't. That is something that'll fall back on myself to calculate when we look at a road segment that we're looking at doing, that we'll have to put an engineer's estimate together of what it would cost to replace your water line, your sewer, and that type of thing. So it'd be separate. The one thing I want to point out, and I know we're stretching our time here, and I don't want to do a lot of that. Lindsay made a very valuable point, and one of the reasons I've been wanting to do this for a while is because if we are looking and serious about trying to get grants, we need this system. PACER system, no one's even going to know what it is. And if you want to go make an argument and you're going to be going up against other cities and counties looking for dollars, you better have a good plan together. And you better have a plan that these reviewers are going to understand. And using a PCI system with Street Saver is going to be one more tool in our belt. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor?
Liz. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm curious if we are sending, like, if we know that we cannot maintain a road when we get this system, like if this system goes into place, and we know that we can't maintain a certain area, how can we use this system to make sure that we're not sending out letters, or do we need to do an ordinance that puts like a stay on letters being sent out to these people that have these sidewalks, that if they maintain them, then they're just gonna get like eroded, knowing that we're never gonna get to their street for the next 10, 15 years because they don't qualify for this scientific system. What do we need to do to make sure that we're not having the homeowner pay to upgrade their sidewalk, because I know those letters went out like a year or two ago. How can we stop that from happening, them having to waste their money upgrading a sidewalk that we can't even help upgrade their street?
What I'll say is that, again, you're absolutely right, Counselor, that we put the sidewalk program on hold beginning of COVID. So
Yeah.
we haven't sent anything out.
Right.
When we were doing COVID, we were doing the downtown sections. We had it broken out in quadrants. The quadrants that we were looking at there were streets with curbs, and they had sidewalk, and they had pavement. We didn't look at roads with gravel.
Okay.
And that's what High Street is. I would have a hard time, as you had just said, I would have a very hard time writing anybody who lived on a gravel road with 4-foot sidewalks that are broken up. I would have a hard time writing them a letter saying, go fix your sidewalk, because there's nothing to fix it to. There's nowhere to go on the sidewalk. And so I don't think that would occur.
Perfect.
I'll
Thank
just put it-
you. I appreciate you clarifying that.
Mr. Mayor. Yes, go ahead.
Two things. Just out of curiosity, does this system take into account kind of typical traffic volume for roads that are equally graded currently? Do we know which one's going to break down faster than another one based on traffic levels?
Lindsay, I'll let you answer that. I know the answer
Sure.
to it, but you're the
Yeah.
professional.
Yes, it does. We look at arterials, collectors, and local streets separately. It has the ability you can put in ADT into the program as well. And so it does prioritize roads that generally have higher traffic, and then it will look at those, like within like an group of arterials, it will look at those condition ratings first. And it does have a prioritization of how it assigns money to roads with higher traffic because they have a higher use.
One of the criteria that we started, I gave Lindsay our ordinance, so she has our ordinance that breaks our roads down per what type of traffic loading they have on.
Okay.
So, and she programmed that in.
And then my second question was, you had some funding scenarios listed. Is there a kind of an upper and lower threshold, I would say, where those level 4 and level 5 projects either never get done or start to get done? I didn't really, maybe you could
Yes.
detail that a little bit more, because I definitely do want to see us get to a point where those, level 5 projects are on the map. They're on the, they're on the schedule. Maybe they're years down the road, but I don't want to, have them never be on the schedule. So, what do those thresholds look like in our budget?
That's a great question. So of course, this scenario 4 here is that would take care of everything. And then after you did that, the remaining years would just be keeping everything good. So your costs would reduce. So it's kind of a tricky question in the sense of, it depends on how long we look at it. If we're just like here, we just looked at 5 years. We could look at a 10-year approach. And then of course the budgets would be a little bit smaller. But as you saw in this graphic, the goal of 70, the deferred maintenance started to decrease. And so it's only at that point at which the deferred maintenance, once it starts decreasing, are you actually hitting those roads that are in category 4 and 5? So in what we ran for you guys, the only scenario that would actually do that is this doing the PCI of 70, which would require about $2.5 million a year. So that's not necessarily an upper threshold, but that would be like a goal that you would want to get to. And like I said, we could reduce that number if we stretch this analysis period over maybe a 10-year timeframe to make it a little bit easier to stomach and not go from $400,000 to $2 million more a year.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested to see that kind of a longer term analysis, because some of those, that 2.5s, I can't imagine that being feasible, but a lower number might be something we could look at if we're stretching it over 10 years.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing you can take from this data is even this budget scenario maintain current PCI, where it's almost $1 million a year. That in itself is still not enough money to basically hold your deferred maintenance steady. And if you're not holding the deferred maintenance steady, it means you are not fixing any of the really bad streets.
One thing I'll add to that, and this goes into the financial strength of your city as well, is that if you are not maintaining that asset, the value of your city goes down. You need to be aware of that. That's kind of what she's getting at there. And that's something to be aware of.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
I think maybe I misunderstood what you said then, because I'm looking at the page where it says 5-year project list, and you were talking about the fat and skinny lines, and some of the fat lines I understood to be some level.
Some of them are
So,
overlays. The fatter,
4 or 5?
the fatter lines there are overlays. The skinny ones are slurry seals. And I think it has some text down below that tells you what those are.
Okay, because it says rehabilitation projects.
So I think you're still not going to get to the category 4 and 5 projects in those. You're just doing the 3 in the rehabilitation.
There might be like one category 5 project in that list, but very unlikely. I'm looking at this real quick on the fly.
Yeah, I
don't think there is.
I didn't see any when we were looking.
Yeah, there are some category 4. So down here in Ida, we were able to capture category 4.
Okay.
But you can see down on Ida, there's this one category 5, and there was no way that we could ever afford to. It would have been lovely to, you look at this.
Oh, is that between
Add
3rd and
this.
4th? I believe that's
Yes.
category 5.
That's like a prime example of we just couldn't afford to add that block in because it was a full reconstruct to the rehabilitation project.
And if you've driven by, you know that's one of the worst segments in town.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I would love to see something that kind of along the lines of Councilor McDonald, and I feel like we've done this before, where your maintenance schedule lances a lot of the maintenance and upkeep, and then, once we have some money, then we can do more reconstruction of roads. Is that something that we can, I would like to see like a little bit of both. Obviously maintaining the assets, but we have to have a plan of somehow getting to fixing.
That is what we're driving towards. Once every 5th or 6th year that we do a reconstruct, but we got to keep our dollars down in the maintenance side of it, so we can generate enough reserves so we can go do that larger project, because these larger projects are going to be well over $1 million to do just for roads. And so you're going to have to generate upwards of $1 million of reserves, so the following year you can do 5th Avenue or something like that, because that's what it's going to cost just for the roads. And so you have to generate that revenue. And the only way you can do it is you minimize your maintenance to that ability. And so you're just playing a game there, a money game, or shuffle game. We're going to put some over here in our savings for 5 or 6 years from now. So when 5 or 6 years comes, we can do that $1 million project. But in the meantime, we're maintaining our roads so they don't degrade and continue to degrade. And so there is a shuffling game there going on.
And I do think that we, maybe in the coming months, need to have a really robust conversation. I need to get my head around it, probably more than anybody, but a really robust conversation about rates, fees, costs, and have the council provide input and direction on our capital improvement program and funding, and kind of a holistic looking at things to see how we want to approach this, because it's not just maintain. I know that as the city council, you want to see some significant stuff, and we need to have the conversation of what would that take? How would we get there? What would it cost? What are some options? And I think we need to have a more robust conversation on all of our infrastructure funding, not just streets too, but it's going to take a little while to get there.
Scary is what it is. Let's find 2 or 3 times more street money than we have.
Would like to thank you, Lindsay, for showing up tonight and helping us out on our road to recovery here.
Mr. Mayor,
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
We got another question.
Mr. Mayor, I had one more question for Lance, sorry. This is kind of an aside. Just curious, are we seeing in construction costs the same level of inflation that we're seeing in other areas?
I was going to say, use just your generic inflation that you're hearing, about 8-9%. We are seeing 3 times that in construction costs. Basically, and I think Lindsay might be able to support this. I don't know. We have Jefferson Street. We're paving that now. We paid $130 a ton for asphalt for that. We normally pay somewhere around $85 to $90 a ton. You do the math. Asphalt is skyrocketed. Pipe, pipe is the same way. Ida Street, I'm going to probably put that project out to bid, but I've been told the pipe itself is 6 months out, and the cost of it's gone up 40% in 1 year. So we'll see where we're at, but all construction costs. I think I saw in my ENR magazine, Engineer News Record, last week, the construction costs were up like 30.8% over the year.
Sounds about right.
And a lot of people are just putting projects on hold until they get it figured out.
Thank you.
We've been seeing the same thing, and some agencies we're working with are pre-buying product to have on hand for next season because it's so tough to get their hands on materials.
Anything else on that? Okay,
Thank you, Lindsay.
yes.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. All right. It is 8 o'clock and a little past. We need to do a public hearing. So, next item is a comprehensive plan map and zone map amendments for a property on,
We missed the public comment portion of that last agenda item, Mr. Mayor. And it looks like we have someone interested in
okay,
giving some.
whoever. Aaron?
It was Aaron.
I wanted to make sure that public comment happened. But one thing I've noticed with talking with people that aren't privy to the process that we're seeing about this process that's happening with paving and street reconstruction is that when they're not involved, they see nothing happening. And so when you have a process that we're talking about projecting out such long periods of time, you're going to have a lot more public dissatisfaction with that. And I think that people that are currently avoiding potholes and driving up on the sidewalks, that's only going to get worse because they are obviously not going to be reconstructed. One thing that I'd like to point out too is that as RDS standpoint, we talked about in some public meetings the idea of redesign of some of like Third Avenue, for instance, being able to have bulb outs where you have room for trash receptacles, public art, things like that aren't even on the horizon with the lack of being able to rebuild these streets. And I think that is something to think about. Also, in the reconstruction of my building, I noted, just taking some rough measurements, none of the streets, at least on Third Avenue that I'm aware of, are ADA, to the ADA standard. So I don't know if in the process of looking for grants, if that also may be brought into the fact that, hey, maybe there is some federal dollars or county dollars or something like that that might be able to be applied just for the reconstruction of sidewalks that would help property owners get them up to code. That's something to think about. But as much as I love hearing how we're able to evaluate our streets, it's really quite scary to think that these things are not going to be fixed. The problems are not going to be fixed, even at doubling or quadrupling the amount of money. That's scary to me. And I don't see people being very happy about that. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment that gets lost in these presentations? And, we jump right to discussion and then maybe come back to it if our fearless staff reminds us on a constant basis. Okay, anything else, Alyssa, that I need to do? Okay, public hearing time. Ta-da! Zone map amendments and a plan map for 381 East Marion Street, commencement of public hearing. Good evening. I have to read this, so bear with me. My name is Henry Porter. I'm the mayor of Stayton. I'll be presiding over this hearing. This is the time and place set for the City Council's public hearing in the matter of land use file number 6-04/22, an application for a comprehensive plan map amendment and a zone map amendment to change the property at 381 East Marion Street from a comprehensive plan map designation of downtown to residential and a zone change from downtown residential mixed use to medium-density residential. The hearing is now open. There we go. No gavel tonight. This hearing is now open. The Oregon Land Use Law requires a statement be made to those in attendance that covers certain matters relative to this case. That statement, with all the information required to be presented under the Oregon Revised Statutes numbered 197.763 bracket 5, is printed and available at the table at the entrance to the hearing room. If you've not yet received one of these forms, you should go get one and review it prior to presenting your testimony. If anyone has any questions regarding anything on the statement or objects to it not being read out loud, please raise those questions when it comes your turn to speak during the hearing. Also at the back counter is the agenda for this evening's meeting, which lays out the order in which people will be called on to speak during the public hearing. The Planning Commission's rules of procedure for land use public hearings and a brochure written to facilitate your participation in the public hearing. You're encouraged to obtain and read a copy of these documents as well. At this time, I would ask the audience if there are any objections to the notice that was sent in this case. I hear none. To the jurisdiction of this body to hear and consider this case. I hear none. If there are any declarations of conflict of interest, ex parte contact, or bias by any members of this body, I hear none. We're now ready for the staff introduction.
Thank you,
Mr. Fleischman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. As was stated in the opening statement, this will be a public hearing on applications for a comprehensive plan amendment from downtown to residential, and for a zone map amendment from downtown residential mixed use to medium-density residential. The property is at the corner of East Marion and 4th. It was the longtime home of Sport Fever Graphics that did T-shirt and hat and whatever screen printing. I'll leave it at that for my introduction, and I will be back following the applicant's presentation with my full staff report.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. I thought he was going to take longer than he did. Okay, applicant presentation. Ms. Boxler again.
Hi, I'm Julie Boxler, representing the Cardboard Box LLC at 278 East High Street, Suite 201 in Stayton. I'm asking for a zoning change from DRMU to medium density on a single-family home located at 381 East Marion Street. It was built as a single-family home in 1908. It's a little bungalow. It was built by the Beaucamps when they were first married. It has a large wraparound porch, 2 bedrooms, and 1 bathroom. It was a single-family home for over 60 years until it became retail manufacturing, sporting goods, and then a T-shirt shop. Cardboard Box LLC purchased the property 3 years ago, and I remodeled it, updating the electrical, plumbing, windows, paint. I added kitchen cabinets back into the original kitchen. I didn't add any rooms or walls, and I even used the original clawfoot tub, had it restored because it was still in the house and being used as a dumping site for T-shirt paint. The current zoning allows the home to be a commercial building, multifamily, or a live-work. I put it up for sale in February of this year, and we had a lot of inquiries for live-work. Potential buyers asked the city planner if they could manufacture and sell Etsy products, make flies for fly fishing, and put them for sale online, or have a satellite office and live in the home. The City of Stayton planner has a different interpretation of the code than the realtor or I had read it. All of these requests were told that they weren't suitable because they would not have pedestrian traffic in and out of the building. Dan personally told me that home occupations are allowed in all parts of the city, and so these don't qualify for live-work. The offer from the trucking company owner to make it a live-work satellite office for a business in Newport, Oregon was formally rejected by the City of Stayton. It's hard to sell a property when approval lies with one person in a very gray definition of live-work. I asked the city planner to have the planning commission look at the live-work code. I sent scenarios to the commission to contemplate. It was on the May agenda, and after a very long meeting on other matters, the commission asked the planner, Dan Fleshman, to go back and make suggestions to them at the next meeting, even though they knew that there was a difference of opinion between a citizen, me, and the planner. So I sent Dan several different town codes about live-work, towns where they believe in entrepreneurs, that a small Etsy business may grow and flourish and go on to become a brick-and-mortar building in the city. Live-work did not make it to the next agenda of the Planning Commission. And so I am here. I own an entire half block in downtown Stayton between Water and Florence on 2nd Avenue, and I've been thinking about building live-work communities or units on this property, but I won't because I can't get the work side of it to be approved. So I'm here tonight to ask for this zone change for the Marion Street house. This zone change would not change the availability of existing water, sewer, storm drainage, transportation, park, or school facilities. There is no increased demand or additional facilities needed. The amount of traffic in the zone will not increase because of this zone change. The city required me to do a traffic study at a cost of $2,000 personally to let the city know that going from a T-shirt shop to a single-family home wouldn't increase traffic. There are 5 single-family houses on 4th Avenue, 2 to the north and 2 to the south of this property. They're all non-conforming in the DRMU. Please approve the zone change so I can get this vacant building sold and filled. But I also ask the council to ask the Planning Commission to have a workshop on live work or to remove all mention of live work from the city code. I think it would make it a lot easier because there are 2 other buildings, one on Washington Street that's having the same issue that I will have, and that Hobson Galen that we just got the $200,000 grant for is going to be a live work. So something needs to happen, and I hope you can help me because it hasn't worked through the other channels. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Staff report, please.
You've got in your packet the application materials submitted by the applicant, my staff report, the recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission, as well as some correspondence from a neighboring property owner, review comments of the transportation planning rule letter from the city's transportation planning consultant, And I've included in the packet written testimony that was received from the Fair Housing Council of Oregon that was addressed to the Planning Commission about their concerns about the adequacy of findings around statewide planning goal 10. That was written regarding the draft order that was originally presented to the council. Changes to that draft order that are included in the ordinance have resulted in just an email from them saying they think that goal 10 has now been adequately addressed, just so you know. The code sets out 7 criteria for approval of a comprehensive plan map amendment. Very similar criteria for the amendment to the zoning map. These criteria address the mandatory state-required findings on consistency with statewide planning goals and the comprehensive plan, address the statewide transportation planning rule, and they also include some criteria regarding whether we have adequate areas for inappropriate locations for the proposed uses, and the policies in the comprehensive plan about where various plan designations should be applied. In this case, enacting this ordinance, approving these applications will allow for the establishment of a detached single-family home where one is not permitted by the code today. The comprehensive plan that has certainly more to say about the need for housing in the community than it does the need for additional commercial or mixed-use space. Goal 10, the statewide planning goals, Goal 10 is to provide for housing needs. Again, this would increase our resident, it's only 0.2 of an acre. It's a one house lot, but it will provide that additional residential area. And with that, the recommendation from the Planning Commission was to approve this. The recommendation from staff is to approve it. You've got a draft ordinance with complete findings. And at the end of the staff memorandum are various options with suggested motions for each one. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. Questions from the council at this point?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Dan, so in the most basic terms, what this current zoning is doing is making it so that people can't really just live there. They have to also have some type of a business, is that what I'm understanding?
That is correct. The existing zoning for the property does not allow a single-family detached house as a permitted use.
Even though it's a single-family detached house that's there?
It is a building.
Okay, a building.
That was
a single family.
That was originally built as a single-family house, but at the time, I don't know when Sport Fever came into existence, but they were there when I came to town in 2006, and was there, and the building was not a residential building at the time the zoning was established in the downtown residential mixed-use zone. So therefore, we may not allow a use that's not permitted to be established.
Okay, so this zoning is causing a lot of red tape, basically, for someone to just live there.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Dan?
Thank you.
Excuse me. Dan, how far back does the zoning current
This-
zoning go? 1970s?
No, well, the current code goes back to the 70s, but the current zoning of this property goes back to 2000, either 7 or 8, I forget. It goes back to, in 2007, we did the downtown revitalization and transportation plan, and that plan was adopted and recommended the creation of these downtown zones and the downtown designation in the comprehensive plan. And it took a few months to get the code drafted and enacted by council. So it may have been late 2008 or so when the zone was established.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Ben.
So, forgive my ignorance, but so this downtown residential mixed use, so is there wording in the code that basically says you have to have some sort of like retail storefront presence? I can walk into your building as a customer, or is there restrictions on the type of business that has to be there?
Not explicitly in the code. And that's the request that that Julie made to the Planning Commission at, I think it was the April meeting. They directed me to come back with stuff. We had 4 public hearings at the May meeting, so I did not include that on the agenda. And it is on the agenda for their meeting next week.
Okay.
But the code defines this term live-work unit. And so as in this case, as potential buyers were directed by their brokers or the listing broker to contact me, I had to go, well, is this really a business use of the property? Or is this something that anybody could do any place in a residential zone where home occupations are permitted? Or in one case, when the fellow called me, it sounded like he was just going to have, the business location was going to be located someplace else. Employees would never come, customers would never come, and he was just going to bring paperwork home to do in the spare room. And to me, that wasn't a place of business for the business.
I'm thinking just because my personal anecdote is because my wife runs her business out of our home. But there's no sign out front. Nobody knows it's really going on, but there's a lot of stuff going on in there. There's a lot of business, and it's all internet-based, and she sells things out of her house, but you wouldn't know it's there if you didn't know. And so I don't know if that kind of thing would technically be allowed under the code if you had, a business license in a LLC or whatever established that you could prove somehow that you were running out of that building.
Right. I mean, and that's the gray area that we need to clarify in the code as to what constitutes the distinction between what we've called a live-work unit and a home occupation. So what is required in a zone where single-family homes are not permitted?
Right.
To
Okay.
distinguish that between what's going on at your house in a residential zone as a home business.
Right. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Dan, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but did you just say that you made the determination of what a business is?
I did. I was presented with a change of use application and needed to make a decision as to whether to approve it or not.
Business isn't defined within the code.
Correct. It is not.
So in those situations, how do you determine what business is? What definition of business would you default to?
well, types of business are defined, either defined in the code in some cases, or the code says that we use the definitions in the North American Industrial Classification System of 2002 edition.
20 years ago?
Well, the code was
Okay.
written in 2006,
Okay.
and that was the most recent
Okay.
version at that time. The question isn't whether something is a business or not. The question, in my mind, was, does the proposed use constitute a live-work unit in that there is a residence and a place of business that would be a permitted use in the zone, that, and when various people called, it sounded to me as what they were proposing was something that would qualify as a home occupation in the residential zone, and therefore is different than a live-work unit where there is a business space and a residential space within the same unit.
And that's the same question that the planning commission asked.
And when Julie brought the issue to the planning commission to discuss, they asked me to come back with some clarification in the code to avoid this interpretation issue in the future.
In the future or at the time?
In the future, because it would be a code amendment that would need to go through the amendment process. I mean, they were asked. There's a provision in the code that allows me to go to the planning commission to get an interpretation of the code where it's not clear. And their response was, well, rather than interpreting the code, we think the code needs to be changed. Please come back with some amendments.
Okay.
And then, as I said, I think that was at the April meeting. The May meeting, we had 4 public hearings, so it didn't get put on the agenda. In June, we have 0 public hearings, and the agenda will be reviewing this issue.
Okay, so conversely, when the zone change occurred to that property, let me back up. Was there a zone change needed in order for that to have, for a business to operate out of that location?
No, if
They
someone.
just got caught up in the
No,
downtown?
two separate proceedings, essentially. And while at the same time that Julie asked me to request an interpretation from the Planning Commission, she also submitted these applications that are now before you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, what I think I'm hearing is that the overall issue is going to come to us later or go to the Planning Commission later. Tonight, we just need to move along to proponents' testimony and all that stuff and decide on this exact property only. And we don't need to worry about all the weeds and the details of what's going to come down the road to us. I'm hearing like a lot of extra that personally, I feel bad for this property owner, and I would like to get through this so that they can go home.
Mr. Mayor? I don't even know where to start on this. If I'm using my house as a business and I have a dedicated space and I expense it out on my taxes and I have income, profit, all this stuff, I don't understand how that's not a legitimate business. And basically, in my mind, I don't even think we should even have to do this. I think that a business run out of a home, like, that's for the person to figure out if that's gonna work or not, but that's not really for us to decide or the city to decide if it's a business, if they're. If they're renting it out of their home and they have tax returns. and
That's
they
what,
can
that's what
prove
the
that it's a
change is for. The change is
business.
for that they're selling it to someone that doesn't have a business, and they want to be able to use it
But there were
purely
people-
residential.
There were people that came forward and said, I legitimately want to use this as a business, and they were
Right.
turned down. So this property could have been sold months ago.
Can I ask for a clarification from Dan? Because I think one of the issues is not that it's a business, or maybe a business, but it's what the downtown zoning for the live-work unit was likely intended for. And I'm kind of making this up because I clearly don't know, but having been in the planning world, I kind of know in downtowns, you might have a zone where you want to allow someone to have a business with a storefront and people walking in and a live-work unit. And I'm just wondering if that wasn't the intent of the downtown zone and why that distinction of business versus non-business is coming into play.
Essentially, yes, it's a little bit more convoluted and complicated than that, because the downtown zoning preceded the listing of live-work unit in the code. And then when we decided to include live-work unit as a use in the land use table, we needed to decide which zones would it be permitted in, and allowed it in the downtown mixed-use zones, residential mixed-use and commercial mixed-use zone. But it's not permitted in the residential zones. And so that's that was the position I was in, was hearing people describe what they wanted to do and trying to decide, is this something that, not is it a legitimate business or not? That's not the question. The question is the land use meet the definition of a live-work unit, or is it a single-family home where somebody has an office and does stuff over the internet? And then that can take place in the residential zones, where a single-family home is not a permitted use in this district.
Mr. Mayor. Not to belabor the point, but I agree with Councilor Hook. I would like to address the code amendments in the future when they come to us and try to get back on target with this particular item on the agenda.
It's on now. Thank you.
Do I have to push a button? Okay, is it on? Okay. I'm Michelle Hendricks. My address is 1040 28th Avenue in Stayton, Oregon. I'm with Home Smart Realty Group, and I list the property. Feedback, excuse me, I have hay fever. Feedback from showings, it was hot when it was first listed. Of course, people wanted to live there. It was in that price point, and just live there. But then businesses started coming forward and reached out to Dan. Feedback from those showings, a lot of times, the one bathroom is an issue for a business to be there too, with customers, and then personally live there. So that was a big thing for businesses. We had a solid offer accepted. So that was probably 3 months ago or so, 3 or 4 months ago, that it would have gone through, but it was denied through the city. So that was one person that didn't care about the one bathroom. That was the truck driver or truck owner. But having the one bathroom in businesses, it just doesn't mix. So it would, as a residential, it would. So yeah, that's all I had to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Other proponents? Anyone else need more than one bathroom? No. No, that's good, thank you. Aaron, Mr. Frechtel.
Aaron Frichtel. I was just thinking about the process of how long this has taken, and I think it's a little disappointing to see the process take so long. And I don't know, I know that you want to solve the issue going forward and make sure that this doesn't keep happening, but if there's a way to shorten this process so that when somebody is trying to sell a property, that could be much more expedited. I don't know what could be done in the process, but it seems a little convoluted with this live-work sort of definition. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Anyone else? Okay, let's go. I want to jump in and yell now, because I'm going to move on this stuff, not wait 5 minutes for everyone to decide they're alive or not. Opponent's testimony. Any? Government agencies, were there anything back from the state, United Nations, European Union? Anybody? Okay. General testimony. Okay. Questions from the public? One last time. Okay. Questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
go ahead.
I'm just wondering if in the future, we can separate out what the code is and the work that we're going to do on that and the actual resident and getting their application moved forward and not getting hung up in the weeds. Because I have to agree that this seems like it took way too long.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions from the council? An applicant summary. Ms. Boxler, did you want to say anything?
I'll be quick. I know most of us are volunteers of our time. I agree with you. Thank you for recognizing that the length of time it takes is important to the applicant, but I'm excited to see that you guys are actually interested in this because there are other units that are in the city that are going to have to go through the same process because the live work in the downtown zones is not adequately coded. And to you, I agree with you. You should be looking at this in this city council hearing because you're trying to decide whether this house should be changed from a live work to just a single family home. And if you don't understand why it wasn't working as a live work, you can't really decide, should it be changed in the code? I know as an applicant, this is going to sound very odd, but I would love to see that building stay as a live work. But I can't sell it as a live work because the code doesn't allow anyone to live work there. In my opinion, when you look at the code and it says that you can have an office in a downtown building, in a commercial downtown building, you can have an office. It doesn't tell you have to have traffic coming in or out. If that is a commercial thing in the DRMU, if you put a residence with that, that should be allowed. It should just be a lot more black and white. If you can have an office, you can have an office in your live-work community. If you can have a restaurant, you could have a restaurant in your live-work community. If you could have a candy shop, you could have a candy shop. If you could manufacture something for Etsy, you should be able to do it in your live-work. But that's my opinion, but I agree. You should be looking at this as part of what should we do for this matter. But I hope you approve it to go to a single-family home because I would like to sell it. Thank you.
Thank you. A staff summary. Dan?
You've got ordinance 1055 in front of you, which would approve these applications, change the comprehensive plan designation and zoning map and the zoning. The Planning Commission has recommended approval, staff recommends approval, and at the end of the staff memorandum, you've got option number 1 to approve the applications and the first consideration of the ordinance as presented, and that's the recommendation from staff to move forward.
Okay, thank you. And that's it. And so unless there's an objection, I'm going to close the hearing and go to council deliberations. So
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead.
right over here. Right over here. Counselor Hook,
Who's on first here?
right here.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So my issue here is just that, like, well, I don't have an issue with approving this, but what I see that the issue is that the applicant just wants to sell it at this point. Like, the frustration is to that point. Like, I just want to get this off of my hands, and I get that. That's why I will definitely be one that's going to vote towards approving it. But this does need to be fixed. Like, this, I would like to see this code, and I would love to get it in my email, honestly, this code that says about this live work and how, like the how these businesses didn't qualify to be able to buy this home to live in and work in. Like, that's where I'm really not understanding. And I know that that's not an issue for tonight, but I would like to see that because it does sound like the applicant wanted to keep it under this designation, but now it's gotten so frustrating for them that they just want to simplify the situation, make it a single family home so they can get it out of their hands and get someone living in it. So I see the urgency to sell, but I also see the frustration that is there. And that is what bothers me about this situation. So I'm going to be voting to, yes, approve it. But I would love to see some stuff, hopefully, in my emails pointing me to a link or something where I can dive into this because I'm confused on how it even got this far.
Mr. Mayor,
We're going to have more speeches on,
I'd like to offer a motion to approve the application and the first consideration of ordinance 1055.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Petty. I second that motion.
all right? Thank you. I've got a motion and a second to approve the first consideration of ordinance number 1055.
Mr. Mayor.
Under discussion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm with Counselor Hook on this. I mean, I guess I'll vote yes on this just so that she can get this sold, but I think that we're also kind of doing a disservice to the property. It's in a great location for downtown. If somebody wanted to, I mean, at this point, somebody could move into it, I guess, and run their Etsy business out of it still if we change it to single family resident or medium density. It's a single family home. I just don't, I mean, does this, later on, is someone gonna want to run a business out of it? It's right behind the covered bridge. That would be a perfect location if they wanted to. I know there was a pad there, you could put a food truck possibly, but can they do that now if we change it to single family? I mean, are we actually like minimizing the opportunities on the property if we change it? So, I mean, do what the applicant wants, but it's actually like, because she's put into a corner that we have to do this, so, I don't know. That's all I got.
If I would interpret your comment, you've seen this kind of short-sighted, sort of?
I mean, kind of, but
Okay.
I want the
Yeah.
owner to be able to
Yeah.
do what she wants to do with the property, which is at this point sell it, so.
Okay, hear that. Okay, good. Other thoughts and questions?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor
Yes.
Patty. I just don't want to believe at this point anymore and waste any of the applicant's time. I am full agreement with you, Councilor Ord, on that. But at this point, this just seems like the best decision for this situation. And I don't want to go any further into this, but I also want to see some live work code workshops after we revise and fix what's wrong here. I think that that's going to be really important for engagement with the local population. So I just wanted to say that real quick before we move to a vote on this.
If somebody wants to move this along, they could just call for the question, but no one does.
Mr. Mayor, I called with a question.
All right, thank you. Alyssa, would you poll the council, or Yes, somebody poll the council, please. On the first consideration of ordinance 1055.
Counselor McDonald?
Yes.
Counselor Hook?
Yes.
Counselor Quigley?
Yes.
Counselor Ort? Yes. Counselor Patty?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Got that one. And then, the council's action may be appealed within 21 days of the mailing of the notice of decision to the Land Use Board of Appeals under Oregon Revised Statute 197.805 to 855. Thank you, folks. Personal comment, I think you did a beautiful job on that restoration, Julie. And it would be, I think, a wonderful little place to live. Thank you, folks. Okay, let us go further. General business, resolution number 1039, unless, Alyssa, did I miss anything so far? One for me, okay. Resolution 1039, adopting fees and charges for various city services for the 2022-23 fiscal year. A staff report from Suzanne. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. It is that wonderful time again this year to bring before the council the change in the rates for the new fiscal year that will start July 1st of 2022. There's one change to your council packet. After it was submitted, we realized we missed on page 10, the transportation for the SDCs missed the CPI rate increase. So that $402 for the transportation fees needs to be changed to $435. It's about page 10, down toward the bottom. It's system development charges. You'll see the transportation. It says 402 currently. And everyone saw that? Do you want me to share screen?
Oh, 402.
It's $402 and we need to change that to $435. Okay. Some other key changes for the rates for this year is the library. We did some restructuring for the rental of space and streamlined that. We increased the engineering fees to be more in line with, that reflects the cost for permits. The SDC rates were increased based on the engineering ERN rate, going rate for this coming year. And then we did some restructuring to the community center and streamlined it to be more in line with the costs and charges. The one thing that we have not adjusted is the pool. We'll be bringing that to you later date. We want a little more time, really analyze it and figure out what our options are best for what the pool rates need to be. Staff recommends that you approve the rates with the change, with adding the amendment to the SDC transportation fees of $435. That completes my report. Is there any questions?
Okay. Are there any questions for Susanna?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm curious why we're bringing pool rates back, but I can talk about with Julia later. I would like to know, since you did bring up the pool rates, how we're logging the people that are even coming into the pool, because I have noticed that when I go, there's no logging going in of like who's actually going. And I know that we had talked about wanting more data. So data is going to be important for me going forward. I'm just going to put that as a blanket statement.
Okay. When people come to the pool, they're checked in at the door? If you pay you have a monthly membership, maybe there's a different check-in, but you're checking in at the door when you come in. And it's being logged through the check-in.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Susanna, a question on the SDCs. Are those all CPI increases?
The transportation fees were increased by the engineering rate. Is that correct, Lance?
No, our resolution says we will increase those annually by the engineered news record from June of the previous year to the June of the following year. This
Okay.
year, that interest included 8.2%, and that's what the SDCs were raised.
Okay.
The last transportation fee, I apparently didn't save it, so it wasn't to the 435. I noticed it, or Dan noticed it today, and that's why we bring it forward.
All right, so previous year was, all total was 16,450.
Mhm.
This year looks like to be 17,250.
Mhm.
Is there a comparison to local cities on their
I'm sure we
SDCs?
could get that for you.
Could you, please?
We could get that for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me, I can answer Counselor Quigley's question. We are squarely in the middle
Okay.
for SDC charges for residential, for all of the surrounding and not even, for all of the Willamette Valley cities.
So higher, lower, we're in the middle.
We're pretty close to in the middle.
Okay.
There's a few that are approaching $27,000 to $29,000. There's a handful that are still down at 12 to 14, but we're right in, I mean, for what it's worth, we're very competitive with those charges.
Thank you.
And I'll also add, I can't speak for other cities in this particular area, but certainly in the area I came from, increasing by the ENR was pretty typical. Sherwood had a similar resolution where it just was automatically increased.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if in the future, and I don't need it tonight or anything, but if we could have a column added for like percentage increase, just so we can visually see that the calculation was made and that it's in alignment so that we don't have to sit here and do the calculations and we just know that the formula is in there.
Try to sit here and do mental percentages. Okay, good point. Questions or thoughts?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. For Suzanne.
I just was looking through my email recently, and so forgive me, I didn't say this. But I saw that Salem was getting rid of their overdue item charges for their library. Is that something that our city council would like to consider? Sure. See Jana coming out here.
We're excited for Salem. They've been working on that probably like 8 or 9 years. It is I think the library would be very much in favor of that. I would tell you personally, it's not something that I had looked at this year because I kind of wanted to have some time to stabilize after the levy and kind of see where we're at. And so it's not, it would be something that would be very cool for our community, and I don't want to sound non-supportive, but that's why I didn't do it this year. We've only had 1 year with the levy, and I kind of want to see where we're at before we do that. The really nice thing about in Stayton is that we've already reduced fines on children's items down to 10 cents a day, and we do a grace period day too. So it's a quarter for grown-ups and 10 cents for kids. I also, I've been checking items in for fines free for 2 years. So we've already been doing some of this because at the library, we're still practicing on like, we need sometimes people forget to bring our stuff back, and we had a long period of hard times. So the library is really focused on like, just drop that back off to us. So we haven't actually been accruing fines since we had COVID. We just have prior year fines, but we'd certainly be in favor. But I kind of wanted you to know what I was thinking when we didn't approach that this year. So.
Would that be something good for us to talk about maybe at the goal setting
Yes,
thing?
that would be
Okay.
a great thing to talk about at goal setting.
Awesome. Thank you, Jana, for all you do.
Other questions for Susanna? Or the resolution?
Mr. Mayor,
I need some, okay, 1039 is what we're working on. Go ahead.
I'd like to offer a
Council.
motion to adopt resolution 1039 as presented.
A second.
We've got a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1039, adopting fees and charges for various city services as presented.
Did you not want to make the amend for the STC
Oh,
transportation?
Sorry. Yeah,
No?
sure,
Okay.
Sure, I'll do that. Got it. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'll revise my motion, please.
That's good.
To adopt resolution 1039 with the amendment to change the, was it transportation SDC?
Correct.
From 402 to 435.
I'm sorry, Counselor Quigley. Apparently, we missed the public comment portion again as well.
I'll rescind my motion.
Rescind my second.
Well, what we're going to do with these agendas is we're going to highlight in big, bold letters. Remember public comment and put it where it happens when it should instead of as an afterthought, which I always do. Yeah, 5 more months and you can do whatever you like. But this is good. So, a revised motion to adopt resolution number 1039 as presented and amended?
It was withdrawn, Mr. Mayor. We have to open it back up to public comment.
Oh, okay, public comment. On resolution 1039. Any? Nothing. I think you can make your motion again. You can offer your motion again, Counselor.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to offer a motion to adopt resolution 1039 with the amendment to transportation SDC from 402 to 425. 435, sorry.
I'll second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. A motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1039 as amended to reflect a increase in an SDC charge from to $435. Is that close enough? Got it?
It was from 402 to 435, Mr. Mayor.
402 to 435, right. Get those numbers right. Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Is there any public comment?
Cannot do public comment right now.
Are there any staff comments?
No.
Okay.
No.
Any discussion?
Anything from the
Nothing?
peanut gallery?
Would you go ahead and poll the council on this one, please?
Counselor Quigley,
Yes.
Counselor Ort,
Yes.
Counselor Patty,
Yes.
Counselor McDonald,
Yes.
Counselor Hook.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Communications from city staff. Apologies, Julia, I should have given you a chance to offer extended comments when I introduced you at the beginning of the meeting and didn't. And they didn't put it in the agenda. And so I didn't. So, please.
Well, thank you very much. I am here. This is my 4th day at the city of Stayton. I'm very excited, learning lots. There's lots to do, but it's very, very exciting. Looking forward to following up on a lot of the things from this evening as well. So while I have been here for 4 days, Tammy is actually, it's her first day officially as a city employee. She's been with the city as a temp for a while and is going to be assisting with the recording duties especially when Alyssa is out of town, and things like that. So welcome to Tammy, our newest employee, and who's also been here longer than me. Just a few other things I just wanted to highlight or do a shout out for the summer reading program kickoff party tomorrow at the library from 3 to 5, I believe. And I'm excited. I'm going to go and see if I can help out. I just wanted to let you guys know about that. And then, as Lance had mentioned previously, Jefferson Street project is underway. Paving was supposed to happen this week, but because of the weather, it was delayed until next week. And the sand filter has been installed. And that is all the updates I have, unless you have questions for me or any of my staff that are all here.
Thank you.
I just want to say welcome to the city. We're so glad to have you. I'm glad to have you here. And Tammy, I would like to say that your presence is noticed when I walk in the building, and I appreciate the warmth that there is when I come in and I'm acknowledged. So I don't even think you know who I am when I walk in. So I even like it better that that's just how you greet people. So thank you for that. It is noticed and appreciated.
I don't get that. I walk in there and turn the dog loose, and he starts screaming and yelling, and so, and no, it's fine. It really is. It's fine. It's fine. Communication from mayor and council. I don't have anything else this evening.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, there was just a couple of things. I just wanted to reiterate that I'm hoping that we can bring forward a conversation about our city attorney. That's something that I am highly passionate about because I don't think it's working. And then also, I wanted to echo something that was said about the beautiful renovation of that. I think it's Bow Camp. Is that how you say it? Building, because I remember walking by that and going, wow, that is really beautiful. And the work that RDS and I believe the chamber did together for those historical signs, or who was that did those? Was that RDS? Just RDS. Okay. Well, RDS, y'all did amazing, because I go by and I read those all the time. I learn more about Stayton. And I remember reading the one about that building and going, that is such a cool piece of history. So I just wanted to recognize that, because I think the mayor had prompted that thought to my head. Also, I wanted to just put out to, just in general, that there is like a medical doctor shortage right now. And I had a resident come up to me saying that they're having to wait like 2 to 8 months to actually find a primary care physician. They're like looking. They are low income, but just to put that on our radar, that we might be hearing more about that. And I don't know what we can do as a council other than call the governor's office and let them know. But just kind of want to put that out, that is another issue that our residents are having.
Mr. Mayor.
That's supposed to be a good job. I might think about going back to school for that one, but probably a little late. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I have a couple things. So I got this letter from the mayor of Almsville, and we can put it on the agenda. It's a letter to Governor Brown. I know you guys all love these things, but it's concerning the chicken farms that are going around in our area. And obviously, this is out of our jurisdiction as a city. We can't do anything about it per se in terms of stopping it ourselves. But if you consider that there's going to be 3 chicken farms within a 12-mile radius of our town, and one that is 1 mile outside of city limits, and the ramifications that's going to have on water, surface water, particulates in the air from these farms, it's going to have a big impact on the livability of Stayton. And so I'd love for you to look over this letter. If you have questions about it, if you'd like to sign on to it, you can contact the mayor of Almsville. I can get you more information about that. But I think that what I was told is that the more cities and councils that can show concern for this, the more it might be taken into consideration. So,
Councilor, or to bounce off of that, because I haven't been here since the last, well, since before like May 21st, which is when there was a presentation that I went to welcome people. It was not on behalf of the city. I made sure that I clarified that I was not representing the city when I was speaking, but we actually had, I think it was Senator Denbrow, Representative Confam, Representative Zach Hudson, Representative Tana Sanchez, Representative Ken Helm, Yamhill County Commissioner Casey Kula, former Oregon Governor Ted Kulinskowski, and there was a couple of other people from those offices that did come to Stayton and did get to hear from the Almsville Fire Department, as well as kind of the overall what the impact could be for like our air quality. Had them take a nice fresh breath of our air and how nice it is right now. But just wanted you guys to know that they were here and they did get to go out and see those those potential locations for the chicken farms, so they could understand the impact, because it isn't just like, it's not our jurisdiction, yes, but it does impact our entire communities, our greater communities. And with the wildfires, I think we all can understand that we're all impacted in a greater way, even if it's on the outskirts of town. So I will definitely be personally, not as a spokesperson for the city, be contacting the mayor of Holmesville on this one, because I think it's important.
awesome. Okay, do you have any questions about that? Okay. I would like to know how interested you all are on having a workshop regarding a suggestion that was made on if there are any ordinances or things that we can do proactively. I know the homeless issue is a big one. The chief has talked about it in length, but if there is something that we can do to be proactive, I think that would be important. Because everything that we're doing at this point is reactive. So if we can, do you have any interest in talking about that? So can we direct staff to have a work session
With
the lawyer?
Yes.
involved? I mean, I really think that, especially that point, because we have to know what our, I know that for the audience and for people listening, there's very limited things that our police can do, that we can do as a city, because of what is going on at the state level and what that trickle-down effect is, but then also what happens at the court level in our, and I can't think of the word, what's the word? It's the
Ninth Circuit Court.
Ninth Circuit Court. So there's lots of trickle-down effects that are happening, but if there are things that we can do, I think that we should try to explore them.
It seems if people are being threatened in public,
Thank
that
you.
should be taken care of already.
Absolutely.
I mean, that shouldn't even be a question of what can we do. That should already all be established. Yeah, beyond that, there's probably room to talk and try to figure something out. Warm weather, as we know, will bring more, disadvantaged folks to our community every summer. Anyway, that's
Mr.
my
Mayor.
comment on it. Yes, Councilman.
In January, when you so graciously appointed me to the council with the council's recommendation, council's consideration, I greatly appreciate that. I think at the time, there were 6 or 7 candidates that were fantastic candidates in my estimation. And I just want to let everybody know that currently the filing time is open to run for council and the mayor position. There will be 3 council positions and the mayor. I think the deadline's the 25th of August, right, Melissa? So I just want to put that out there. I encourage everybody that wants to take a greater role and have a more vocal say in what takes place in the community to please consider doing that. It takes a village, which I sometimes don't necessarily agree with, but in this case it does. So anybody that's out there that's really considering it, please feel free to reach out to the council if you need to know about time commitment. But I really encourage folks to come forward and put their best foot forward to help the community. So thank you.
Thank you. Anything else this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Patty, if I may, real quick. I just wanted to go ahead and say swimming lessons started very recently, and I had the privilege of going down there with my children and partaking, and I just want to go ahead and compliment the pool staff for their rollout of these. I know that was kind of chaotic, a lot of interest, which makes me very happy to see. I also want to compliment the supervisor down there. She was telling me that she's hired a lot of new staff, and so sounds like we need to give them some grace and patience as they indoctrinate those folks into the pool atmosphere. So I just wanted to say thank you for rolling that out. I know Susanna, Alyssa, y'all had a big hand in that. So thank you. Your efforts were noticed and appreciated.
Thank you, Counselor. Anything else? It's after 9 o'clock. Let's go home. Thank you, folks. Meeting's adjourned.